Today's program is brought to you by Microbalance Health Products. Feel good again. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. You know, when you say the word cognition, people say, okay, what is that word? What does it mean? Joining me right now is Dr. Don Dennis. Dr. Dennis is an ear, nose, and throat doctor. He is a believer that mold causes a whole lot of health problems, including that which might alter your cognition, right? So we're going to talk a little bit right now in the next 10 minutes about mold and its ability to negatively impact your cognition, or favorably when you get rid of it, right?
Right.
So do you see this in patients coming in with cognition problems?
Well, most of them have that, and the patients call it brain fog.
Right.
And they have difficulty in remembering, or it takes them a few more seconds to pull up a word. And then they have trouble with their job. They can't do small arithmetic problems in their head.
You mean mold can be causing that?
Yeah, and the reason we found out is there's a test called acute EEG, which just measures brain wave voltage. And a normal executive functioning brain will have high voltage, whereas a hampered brain that's been exposed to mold will have low voltage. So in those patients that had had surgery, we filled up the maxillary sinus, which is in the cheek, with amphotericin. And about 30 minutes later, if you retest them, it's back to high voltage, and the patient's noticing that the fog is lifting from their brain. So we proved it was due to fungal exposure.
Folks, it's one thing to have Dr. Dennis talk about this, or me. I'm kind of biased. The whole show for the past 18 years has been on mold. It's a whole nother thing to have people who have realized this and reversed this cognition problem with this program. Watch these.
I was feeling dizzy and just not myself.
I could not think, and I was tired all the time. I barely could hold my head up. I stayed confused and overwhelmed. No matter how much sleep I got, I still felt the same way. I started getting bad headaches, nosebleeds, muscle aches and pains, rapid weight gain.
Pain in my muscles and aching in my joints, severe fatigue. Also, I was having a lot of neurological symptoms, so things like simple math were difficult for me to do, and I had severe memory loss. I also had depression.
My energy level plummeted completely. I used to be able to multitask and do a lot of things at one time, and I just didn't seem to be able to do that anymore. I noticed that I started having brain fog and some memory issues with lack of concentration. I also developed a metallic taste in my mouth that was weird and seemed to be pretty consistent. I had a significant weight gain that took place over about a 2-year period. And then probably the most alarming effect that I had were neurological symptoms. And as a nurse, I knew that I needed to seek some type of medical attention to address these.
You know, I can never hear enough of those. I mean, those are miraculous. That's really, you know these people. I mean, you knew their plight, they wanted to get better, and here they are doing so much better now.
Yes, it's one by one. You see them one by one, and then you see their stories. And all of these patients had significant cognitive issues, so they couldn't perform their jobs. And now they can, because we simply got rid of the fungus in their air and in their body. And it's very rewarding for them too.
I think as a patient, you know, it's rewarding to know that I have a volume switch myself. I don't have to keep running to a doctor for new drugs for my cognition problems. I can turn the volume way up by drinking alcohol, going on antibiotics, eating a lot of corn in my diet, etc. Conversely, I can turn the volume way down by acknowledging that those very things are mycotoxins, or that they feed mycotoxins, and I can live a diet that doesn't have to do that. That's got to be so rewarding when they have control over their cognition, because we're told when we have a cognition problem, you need a cognitionologist. You know, you got to go to a doctor who understands these things. You can't possibly control it yourself.
Well, you know, all these people who have fungal exposure have diminished mental faculties, and they'll tell you that. That's one of their chief complaints. And all of them get improved when you remove the fungus from their body and from their air. Now, if they don't, then they do need to work up with a neurologist, but you just get them all off the table first and see if that does the job.
Yeah, and he does that, folks, by doing a tap test. You know, how do you know if this patient is exposed to mold? This jacket was in my closet, right? So you take this tap test, and you can tap your shoes, you know, your body, et cetera. And for a few days, you let it sit there, and you watch these colonies grow and grow and grow on this. And if they get up to a huge number of colonies, that's a problem. Now, what Dr. Dennis also says is the problem is this is so close to this. He's got some photos to prove that. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more. Dr. Don Dennis joins me right now. He's been a buddy of mine for several years. He's a physician who gets it. If it weren't for the Vietnam War, I might be a physician today, and this show would be of no value to you. I'd talk about drugs and p-values on research and stuff that would bore you. But I didn't. And now I try and surround myself with people who are physicians who really understand this. Dr. Dennis really understands this. Dr. Dennis, molds make poisonous mycotoxins. A group of them are called neurotoxins, brain toxic, nervous system toxic. Another group are called tremogens. Gosh, wonder what Parkinson's must be. And what I want you to do is expound a little on the way we landed at the last segment. We saw the testimonials, and then we talked about the proximity of the olfactory bulb, olfaction, the sense of smell. The bulb and all these nerves sit at the base, really, of the brain.
Right. Well, the toxins get into the body in two ways. You breathe it through the nose, and you see it's really close to the brain. So this whole thing is the nose. These are the eyes.
Okay.
And this is the
this
brain
is an eye,
up here.
and that's a brain. Yeah.
And so this substance here is a fungus. So you can see that it doesn't take much for it to get from here to here. And the cognition problems are caused by it getting into your bloodstream, number one. And number two, it goes by route of the olfactory nerve endings. And so we can show another slide showing how close that is. These are the smell nerves, and this is the olfactory bulb here. And so, of course, the brain is up here. So these are spread diffusely microscopically throughout all these tissues inside the nose. So once the toxins get into the nerve roots, they easily travel from there into the brain, or they can go through the nervous system. And then sometimes the fungus gets in the frontal sinus, and sprays or nebulization doesn't reach here, so we have to do like an upside down head position with a nose drop. So you put the dropper right here in the roof of the nose and empty the dropper, and then it goes into this sinus if your head's upside down, like upside down like that.
So the patient does that, yeah. And then squirts.
And then they just put the dropper in the roof of their nose and then empty it. So it travels, this is like a shoehorn. So it travels all the way up here and goes direct to collector.
I got you.
And
Okay.
it stops the headaches in the frontal area, which is above the eyes.
And at the top of this, you have amphotericin B. That's a drug, a very early antifungal drug, as a topical in sinuses.
Well, amphotericin in the beginning was an IV drug, and it does to the 50 milligrams. It caused a lot of problems in the kidneys. But when you put it in the nose, it's not absorbed systemically, and the dosage is only 3 milligrams over like a 3-week period. So you're not getting absorption, and the dosage is low, so it's 100% safe. It is 100% not toxic using it this way.
How long does it take? Let's say a patient comes into you having sinus problems, cognition problems, and so forth. How long does it take before not you, but the patient knows that we're finally on the right track?
Usually a couple of weeks, but if they get out of the house, for example, and go to the beach or something, they know in a few days if they've changed their diet and they're on their antifungal. And then it takes about 8 weeks for them to totally get back to normal. once you get rid of the fungus. So
Now,
day one is the day they get rid of the fungus in the air and the nose.
so within a few days,
Yeah.
they're going to say, wow, finally. But then do they tend to go back into an environment?
Oh, sure. It can be their home, office, or car. And so they get back in those situations and they know right away, hey, I don't feel so good in here.
Yep.
And so then they're training themselves to get out of those situations so they can stay well. And there's really no option for them. If they don't do that, they just can't feel better.
And folks, that's what the genius of this doctor has done. He has his medical practice, and then he's developed these products, amazing products. Put a few drops, Citra drops in water, right? Maybe a couple times a day. This goes in the nose. These are his homeopathic blends. Squirt them under your tongue. And these are the Petri dishes to do the tap test or lay these out in your home. They're Petri dishes that will attract mold. Here's the laundry, right? The laundry additive.
Yeah.
Get that mold off your clothes now. Spray the couch, your clothing, in your environment, your bed, etc. The candles I love. Create a 10, 12-foot mold-free environment with these. He's got a group of products that are just brilliant. Nothing short of amazing and helping so many people. Thank you for your practice, your brain, your cognition, and your products. We appreciate you.
Thank you for asking me.
You betcha, Dr. Dennis. I just lectured with Ed Griffin, the author of A World Without Cancer in Orlando, an amazing man, an amazing book. Watch this from Nurse Jenny, and then I'm going to talk about all these brain diagnoses. What causes a toxic brain? Watch.
Hi, I'm Jenny Herbacek with the Cancer Connection. The World Health Organization says that 70% of all cancers are preventable, but little is actually spent on prevention. Dr. Margaret Como, who wrote the book, A World Without Cancer, said what so many others have said. More than 40 years after the war on cancer was declared, we have spent billions of dollars on research, but we have not adequately channeled our scientific know-how into funding the one certain path that will save lives, and that's prevention. The one cancer that has decreased because of a prevention campaign is lung cancer. Remember the anti-cancer smoking campaign? Imagine what we could do if organizations launched campaigns against sugar, junk foods, environmental toxins, and stress. How about a campaign for the use of vitamin D, which we know is cancer preventative? So the next time you think of donating to a cancer organization, check out their sponsors and ask what do they do specifically to reduce the incidence of cancer. For Know the Cause, I'm Jenny Herbacek.
Friends, a couple of weeks ago, I lectured at a group of doctors out in St. Louis. What an incredible meeting that was. And I put up a slide and I said, fungus makes poisons. And these poisons are lymphotoxic, dermatotoxic, brainotoxic. It's called neurotoxic, right? So what is neurotoxic? It is anything that impacts your brain. Like a toxic brain, you're constantly neurotoxic. When I was young, everybody had dementia. Grandma and grandpa, when they got in their 70s, 80s, 90s, mom would just say, well, they have dementia. Then it went to senile dementia because no 4-year-old has dementia, right? So it went to senile dementia. Well, today it's a whole host of problems, including Alzheimer's. We have carefully labeled, areas of the brain and saw what happened to them. But what I want to talk to you about right now, because I think you can do something about it, is neurotoxicity, okay? Let's define that. There's a website I found, neurotox.com. Go to that. This is a PhD that runs it. It's very, very good. A cause of brain damage. Neurotoxicity is a cause of brain damage. Can you shut it off? Logic might dictate, okay, if I'm neurotoxic, how do I shut it off? We talk about detoxing, far infrared saunas, hot baths with, magnesium in them and so forth. How do you detox a toxic brain? You must first understand what got you there. Was it electromagnetic fields? Hello, Mom, I'm going to talk to you for an hour on the cell phone. Was it the smart meter they put in your apartment or your home, and since your brain hasn't been right? You can do something about those things. That's why they have a speaker on a phone, and you can call the utility companies, and they're going to charge you money, folks. That's what they want. They're going to charge you money, but they might be able to move that smart meter out of your bedroom, the wall outside of your bed, right? But then there are things we did to ourselves long ago that might induce neurotoxicity. Here's what this website says are some of the factors that cause a toxic brain. I thought this was fascinating. This is a 10th of them. I mean, he's got a list that's amazing. Chlorine. Who'd have thought? But I love, see where I've underlined there? Now, the yellow on drugs is a little bit different. I'll go into that in a minute. But the yellow on damp building, mold, mycotoxins, sick building, and Stachybotrys is really all the same. But do you see some of these things? Do you see opiates, Paxil, Prozac, antidepressants, antipsychotics, tranquilizers, sleep drugs, radiation injury solvents, styrene? Isn't that the plastic pool the kids swim in? Synthetic carpets, welding fumes, wood preservatives. And he went on, but what I wanted to do is get you to hone in on something we're doing to ourselves. I mean, you know, we're getting into these mycotoxins. We don't know it. Stachybotrys is what they call black mold, Stachybotrys atra. You can usually walk by the living room into the bedroom and see the vents. Wow, that's black coming out of those vents. There's something to go along with that black, and that's our lungs. We're inhaling it. We are Stachybotrys' filter, right? It ends up in our lungs. Sick buildings. That's buildings that are moldy, and then all the other things that he talks about, mold, damp buildings, and so forth. But you notice drugs. I didn't underscore drugs, but I brought that up for a reason. Here's an old slide I gave maybe 10, 12 years ago to a group of doctors. Penicillin can be neurotoxic. As a matter of fact, in 1945, I wasn't even here, penicillin was first recognized as neurotoxic. Now, this comes out of a paper dated 2009 where they were giving IV penicillin, and they found that penicillin has been shown to be neurotoxic to the brain in all age groups. And then the cause of grand mal seizures and spasms, and in some cases, even hallucinations. We've all been on penicillin or penicillin-derived antibiotics. Are we now having problems with the brain? Have you thought about probiotics to offset, to put the good bacteria there that the antibiotics erased, therefore eliminating some of the neurotoxicity? Have you thought about starving those fungus that are now going crazy from 30 years ago from your acne that you took all those antibiotics? Change your diet to the Kaufman 1 diet. Look at something like probiotics. And finally, amoxicillin can be neurotoxic. Any of you put your children on it? Look at the brain effects: agitation, anxiety, changes in behavior, confusion, convulsions, dizziness, hyperactivity, insomnia. Did you know? And your answer must be no, I didn't, Doug, because my pediatrician didn't know that either. Just know that there are things we did a long time ago to cause some of these neurotoxic reactions. A lot of them you can now begin sopping up with changes in your lifestyle. Daniel is here now to teach you a deadlift. I know many of you are saying, if I had to lift, I'd be dead. It's different. Watch Daniel. And then afterwards, I promised you pumpkin turkey chili, and you're going to get, oh, it is so good. Wait till you make this for the kids and the family. Pumpkin turkey chili.
Raise your hand if you have ever been sitting in a movie theater or in a car or whatever for a long period of time, and you get up and you just make this roar sound. Well, that's because you've gotten tight. Your hips have gotten tight because you've sat stagnant for so long. So the antigen to that is to go ahead and move and to go ahead and stretch through that, that particular location. Hips, that's what we're gonna stretch right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of tuck my left leg behind me. I'm gonna go ahead and put the outside of my right leg on the ground. I'm gonna take my left hand, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my right foot, and all I'm gonna do now is try to take my left shoulder over my right foot. I'm literally just gonna rock, just like so, and I'm feeling this amazing stretch, and it really is amazing. I'm trying to stay focused on the camera, but it feels really, really good. So what I'm doing here is I'm loosening my gluteus medius, and that's basically the outside portion of your hips like this. And that's the portion that gets into trouble later on in life when people start needing hip replacement surgeries. So by stretching it and lubricating it and sending energy and blood and burning mycotoxins out of that area, you're really setting yourself up for success and not needing any surgeries later on in life. Posture is important. Always want to be tall and strong. All I'm doing is just rotating through. You can go at whatever pace you want. It does not have to be an intense burn, but just rather whatever works for you. Outside of the hip, super important. So again, every day I would encourage you to try to do one thing that makes you better for the next decade of your life. Go to one place, try one new exercise, one new stretch every day. You'll enjoy the benefit of the endorphins, which by the way means inner morphine. As always, thank you for checking us out on behalf of Doug and the crew. See you next time on Know the Cause.
You're gonna love this because today we're making pumpkin turkey chili using a slow cooker. You know, the colder it gets outside, the better this ought to taste. Here are the ingredients that you're going to need. 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and you can divide that, but remember, you can use macadamia nut oil, you can use coconut oil, really good oils. 1 cup of diced onions, a half a cup of organic green bell peppers, and you dice those, and then a half a cup of organic yellow bell peppers, again, diced. A clove of organic garlic, mince it. 1 pound of organic lean ground turkey. 1 can, 14 to 15 ounces of diced tomatoes. 2 cups of pumpkin. Now next, let's pour in 3 cups of organic chicken broth. Then add a tablespoon and a half of chili powder, sea salt and pepper to taste. You will need some sour cream and cilantro, get organic cilantro, and garnish with these. Okay, let's get started. Heat the olive oil or whatever oil you're going to use in a skillet, about a tablespoon of it in a skillet, and we will saute the onion, peppers, and garlic over medium heat until they are tender. Remove the skillet and set it aside. Add remaining 2 tablespoons of the oil, olive oil we used, to skillet, and cook ground turkey until cooked thoroughly. When it's done, drain the excess fat. Next, let's put the meat and sauteed vegetables in the slow cooker. Add tomatoes and then the pumpkin. Add the chicken broth. Then add the chili powder. And finally, add the salt and pepper and stir it thoroughly. Now let's cover it and cook it. Low for 3 to 4 hours or higher temps for 2 to 3 hours. When it's all finished and looking beautiful, you can even make it more beautiful. Garnish with a little bit of sour cream and cilantro. As the days get colder, let's all enjoy the pumpkin turkey chili. This and a lot of other recipes can all be found on knowthecause.com. You know, it's funny, when Dr. Dennis is here, each time he comes in from Atlanta, I learn the financial impact of misdiagnoses. Folks, I'd love to tell you misdiagnoses are rare. Here's the products he's talking about, the TAP test. Remember that? See, way to the right, mold screening test plates. That's what you want to tap. Clothing, go into your closet, tap them, watch what grows out, watch what colonizes on that plate. You know, and then in a few days, you'll see maybe while you're having respiratory problems or you're talking like this, it's mold throughout your house. It ends up on the clothing, the carpet, the drapes, etc. Thank you for joining us today. What did you think about the toxic brain? So many diagnoses of brain disorders now. Why does the brain go awry like that? Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining us. God bless you, folks. I'll see you next time.